I was a junior in high school when I was offered a job at, as I say, this Columbia, this wholesaler of TVs, washing machines, and to my great surprise and delight, it was a distributor for Columbia Records. So I started as a shipping clerk after school hours. I was a junior in high school, and the following year after graduation, that was the year of Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
So when the war was over and I got back, the ritual was you get your job back. But at that time I was older and wiser, and they gave me a territory from New Haven to Greenwich, calling on record stores, radio stations, jukebox operators, and that was very big at the time.
Yeah. So were you selling then?
No, I was calling on dealers.
Okay.
So yes, I was selling to them.
To dealers.
Yeah.
Right.
And let's see. And my territory was the Bridgeport factory. So after 5 years, I found out that they needed a merchandise manager, and I qualified to get it. And that's how I started with the parent company.
So what did the merchandise?
I was given the popular field. Once the record is made, it goes to the sales department. I was part of the sales department. And we make presentations to our distributors throughout the country.
Okay.
And they're all independent distributors. Most of them are radio wholesalers, television wholesalers. Television was very young then.
Yeah.
And they also handled records. And they called on the dealers in town. Like G. Fox was a dealer. Zemmel's in Bridgeport was a dealer. Whiting's was a dealer. And those are the people we called on. I did that for, I guess, 4 or 5 years. And then I joined the parent company as the director of popular records.
And that was in early 50s?
That was, about 1949.
1949.
Yeah, right.
So did you know anyone that worked at the Bridgeport factory at all?
Well, I got to know some of them, yeah, because I just had an opportunity to meet with them. And all the executive offices were in Bridgeport.
Okay,
even
that's
the
what I
president.
was unclear about.
Even the president.
So you met Ted Wallerstein? Did you meet
Ted
him?
Wallerstein, yep.
Mm-hmm. And then you were commuting. Were you still living in Hartford at the time? Or?
I was going. I used to rent a room in Bridgeport and stay there from Monday to Friday, and then go back on the weekend.
I see. Okay,
yeah.
So you were commuting from Bridgeport into New York.
That's how it started. But when I joined the parent office in Manhattan, I couldn't afford to move because to move to be closer to New York was too expensive for me. And so I commuted, and my kids were toddlers, and they loved where we were in Milford.
Mm-hmm.
And so I commuted, and I didn't intend to stay commuting, but the kids loved it, and we loved it so well.
I wondered how you ended up here in Milford because I knew that you were from Hartford.
This was in my territory.
This is where you were.
Yeah.
Where you lived.
I used to go from New Haven to Greenwich, calling on dealers.
Mm-hmm. So you were kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
Milford. Yeah.
And I did that. Well, we moved. I think it was in 1951 or 48, 49. I'm not really sure of the year. We all moved. All the executive offices moved to New York.
Okay.
And that's when I began this 30-year commuting.
So what were all your titles that you had as you
I began as the popular merchandise manager.
Okay.
And then I became general merchandise manager, where I handled both the popular and the classical and the country and the children's.
Mm-hmm.
And then I became appointed vice president.
Vice president. And was that what that article is referring to, the 1964
I guess
article?
it was. I think
that's what it was.
Yeah. And I was vice president of merchandising and advertising for a while, but then we split the duties.
I see.
And made advertising separate.
Okay.
And I got widowed in the mid-70s, and I counted my nickels and dimes and figured I could leave, and I did. I left.
So you were there between what, 1949 and
1949 and 1978.
78. I've got a few questions I wanted to ask.
Sure.
I think you answered a lot of them already, but how did you see merchandising and advertising change over the years that you were working there?
Well, the big change was that we changed from independent distribution, and we bought them all out, and they became our branches.
I see. Okay.
So we were all one team, all on one side, and that was a very material change in how we operated, and it was a very, very favorable change that we made.
Was that something that you were involved in, the decision making on, or?
Yeah, all of us were. Yeah. All of us had separate roles in terms of evaluating inventories of distributors and how we were going to get out.
I know that you also went overseas in Europe and Japan as well.
Well, we had this idea of 4-channel sound, quadraphonic sound, we call it. And what we did is we tried to convince phonograph manufacturers to start, making quadraphonic equipment. So that took me to Europe on many occasions, and to Mexico, Japan, never South America. I never made it to South America, nor do I feel I miss anything.
Yeah.
But
I found a New York Times article from, I think, 1975 maybe, and there was a quote in there from you about the quadraphonic sound when it was first starting to come out, and they were talking about what the classical musicians thought of it.
It didn't happen.
Yeah.
We did produce quadraphonic records for a couple of years. I think they're pretty good collector's items now.
Was Columbia the only one that developed?
Oh no, we were all, and there were a number of competing systems. Sony had a system. Sony was our affiliate in Japan.
Right.
And Sansui. There were 2 or 3 systems competing, but the idea of quadraphonic sound just didn't go.
Didn't go very well.
No.
Didn't go over. Right.
The record was compatible. You could play it on either stereo or quadraphonic, but there wasn't that much interest in quadraphonic. Although now with the new spectacular rooms where people have all the electronic equipment, quadrophonic sound is making a comeback.
What did you think of Mr. Wallerstein?
I didn't know him very well, but he had a very good record, organizing, and he left to start his own company.
What was he doing? I mean, he was here. I was trying to get his timeline straight. Also,
He was
I know
president.
He started in 38.
He was president.
And then when did he leave? Was it 50?
I don't really recall this exact year.
Yeah, I cannot find that out either. So I'm trying to figure that out too.
We brought in Jim Conkling, who was then an officer with Capitol Records in California.
Okay.
So he was with us for a while.
Mm-hmm. So did he take over his position?
Conkling took over for Wallerstein, yeah. And Conkling left after 5 years, and we had two of the greatest executives ever in the record business. Mm. One was the guy that replaced Conkling, Goddard Lieberson.
Yes.
And then Mitch Miller.
Right. And that was my next question, actually, for you.
Yeah.
Actually, Ernie.
These were two giants.
I know.
Really.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to ask you about what your influence on Mitch Miller's sing-along idea was.
We all sat around the table one day, and it was recommended that all of us think about a new album. And this was not that long after the service, and I recommended that we take the old GI songs that we used to march to, and with a lusty male chorus, record them. And Mitch grabbed onto the idea right away.
Right.
And the rest is history. He ran through, I think, 6 or 7 volumes.
Wow.
And did very well. Yeah.
And did that lead him to his
TV show
thing and his show?
TV show, yeah.
Right.
It was the #1 show there for, I think, 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then did Columbia produce that?
No.
Produce the show?
CBS produced it.
Right.
CBS produced it.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, we were that was our parent company. John Hammond, good friend of mine. Yeah.
I was wondering if you knew him as well.
John Hammond and I were original members of the Grammy Awards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We both joined together.
Okay.
Skeptical as we were about the likelihood of this would be important.
What year is that? When did it start?
1958, I think.
Oh,
1958.
Cool.
Yeah. We had neighboring offices, and we both joined. John was an heir. I forget now what family.
The Vanderbilt.
Whitney or Vanderbilt. Yeah. So I recall very distinctly the dues were $15 a year, and lifetime was $100 a year.
Wow.
So John went for the $100. He could afford it.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you too about your suggestion of Columbia releasing the popular music on 12-inch. So was that after the introduction of LP?
When LP was introduced, it was basically a classical medium.
Right.
And there were 10-inch popular records. And I said, why don't we do a 12-inch popular record? Kind of a concept thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started it with a few records. The most important one at that time was a Michel Legrand, I Love Paris.
Oh, yes.
So the 12-inch medium gave us an opportunity to do concept things. And So that was the breakthrough for the 12-inch.
Okay.
And that became the standard for the entire industry. We had a French subsidiary in Paris, so we wrote him and we said we'd like to have an album, I Love Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time we didn't know who we had to do it, but we later learned it was Michel Legrand. But Michel Legrand was a pretty versatile composer. He was a jazz,
Violinist, right? Yes.
a very qualified pianist, jazz artist, but he was great with symphonic things too. So he did a series for us after Paris of Vienna, I think Spain, uh, three or four albums.
Okay.
But the breakthrough for the CL, for the 12-inch CL, was his album, I Love Paris. That's what started it.
So, who was your favorite artist on Columbia?
Oh, God, I had several of them. Sinatra, of course. I was a big fan of Frankie Lane. Remember Frankie Lane?
Yeah, I know the name. I don't know if I know.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
He was a late bloomer, a more elderly performer, but I thought he was marvelous.
Mm-hmm.
He made some wonderful records, I believe. Uh, uh, there was a time when Mitch had 9 out of the 10 popular records in Billboard.
In Billboard.
Yeah, 9 out of the 10, and Frankie Lane had 1 and 2.
Wow. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, what were your impressions of John Hammond?
Oh,
I know you were friends.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A great guy. Great guy. Yeah. He was a he was a charter guy. He really early on. I mean, he discovered Billie Holiday,
Yeah.
Benny Goodman. He discovered Bruce Springsteen
I know.
and Bob Dylan.
Well, were you, and I was trying to figure this out from Marma Stein's book. Did you write the advertising copy for Highway 61 Revisited, which was what was it?
Yeah,
Nobody sings Dylan like Dylan.
You asked that in your notes to
Yeah.
me this morning. I don't remember that I did. I did some liner notes,
Okay.
but I don't remember if I did that one.
Because there was the promotion for it was this thing called Nobody Sings Dylan Like Dylan, and it was the promo for Highway 61 when it first came out in 60. What about, did you do some promotion for Miles Davis, Kind of Blue, as well?
Yes. Miles Davis was looked upon as the greatest jazz album of all time. Yeah. I guess still is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So what was the reaction of him? Because Kind of Blue was 1959. Was this his first album for Columbia? I can't remember.
No.
He already had
done,
a few.
Oh God, 3 or 4 before Kind of Blue. Yeah.
Was it a difficult album for you to market?
Jazz was funny. Jazz was never a big unit item.
Yeah, it's not many of.
No, it was probably no more than 4 or 5% of our total sales.
Okay.
But they were historically important. Miles Davis. He was a pistol. I mean,
did you meet him?
Yes, in a way, but his producer was a very good friend of mine.
Uh-huh.
I used to get these Miles Davis stories. I mean, he was a spook personally.